Super Videos back at you for another Q&A video. This is gonna be Q&A number 22. As always, if you're not caught up with The Walking Dead's TV show and comic book, you may not want to watch this video because things may be spoiled for you. So let's get right into this. Let's start with The Walking Dead show questions. The first question comes from the Black Antihero, and he asks, do you think Tobin will become a badass? I think he has the potential of becoming a good soldier for the Alexandrian community, for sure. The next question comes from 0718 Dragon Lord, and they ask, if you were the Lucille victim, what would your last words be? That's a deep question. I can't really answer that without thinking about it in detail, but probably what Abraham said. I'm just kidding, I don't know. It's too much of an in-depth question for me to answer in a Q&A here. The next question comes from Final Mystery T, and he asks, due to the backlash of the start of Season 7, is the Negan character too evil for today's PC world? That's a great question. I definitely think that the Negan from the comic book was going to have controversy when he is brought to the television. What is there on the comic book in that medium may not be acceptable on the TV show no matter what. And it's kind of weird as well because there's been worse than that on movies, but then on TV show, it seems like they don't really accept that on TV. There's more scrutiny on what they do on the TV show because of that. The next question comes from the Black Antihero, and they ask, do you think Heath is dead? No, I don't think he's dead. I think he's gonna come back in a few seasons, maybe season 8. I think the reason why they gave him this story arc with having him leave like that was because Corey Hawkins, who's the actor who plays Heath, got a new gig at the new TV show 24. So because of that, they had to kind of write him out of the script a little bit like that. But I think his character is too cool of a character for them to just kill off. So that's why they kind of made it so that there was still a chance that he could come back. And I definitely think he's going to be coming back. The next question comes from Jiggy the Goose Cohen, and he asks, now that Tara already knows that Denise is dead, do you think she'll get another love interest? If she do so, which one do you prefer? Cindy, Francine, Rosita, or Patrice? It doesn't matter in my opinion, as long as it's not forced in the story and it feels organic, then I'm okay with it. Whatever they choose, whoever they choose. So it's not a big deal for me. The next question comes from 0718 Dragon Lord, and he asks, what if the termites accidentally ran into the saviors and killed a few? I believe they would get their asses handed to them if that happens, because the saviors have a lot of numbers and the termites have even less people than Rick does, so they would definitely get wiped out for sure. The next question comes from Nikolai Jot, and he asks, do you think that Heath could be Holly of the comics? In the comic, Holly looks like Andrea, that is Rick's wife, and in the TV show, Heath looks like Michonne. Maybe Negan just shows the hair of Heath to Rick so that he thinks he's Michonne. He's basically referring to the Holly death, and I think it could have been a cool idea to do something like that in the TV show, but based on what we've seen so far, it seems like Heath was not taken to the sanctuary, so it kind of makes that theory irrelevant at this point. But I do agree with you that that would have been a cool remixed version if they do something like that. The next question comes from Jiggy the Goose Cohen, and he asks, do you think Heath will cross paths with Magnus Group? That's actually a pretty good idea. That may be the best thing they can do to kind of bring back Heath when they feel like he needs to come back. And it would be a great introduction of Magna and a good remix of the comic book. So that's a good idea if they do something like that. But will they do it or not? I'm not sure. It's too early to tell. They can do a lot of things with Heath. They can connect his storyline with a lot of things. The next question comes from Gavin Cottrell, and he asks, do you think the TV series will end with Rick and Negan killing each other and Carl having to put both down? I think that's kind of connected to what's going to happen in the comics. In the comics, I think that Robert Kirkman has a big idea for Negan, and he's not going to kill him off like that anytime soon. And it's too early to say what's going to happen. I think the scenario you described can be cool, but there's a lot of plot holes that is going to be there if they do something like that. But it all comes down to what Robert Kirkman has in mind at the moment. The next question comes from Jiggy the Goose Cohen as well, and he asks, do you think Natalia will survive the season? I definitely think she will. I don't even think she's gonna be coming back anytime soon. Maybe even not this season. If she does, it'll probably be like episode 16 or 15 or something like that. So I don't think she's gonna even be back, but she's definitely gonna survive this season for sure. She was just introduced and we're probably not gonna see her for a while, so it'll be weird if they bring her back and just kill her. So I think she's definitely gonna survive this season. The next question comes from Roleplay Morgan Jones, and he asks, do you think that Abraham was kind of afraid of his death when Negan picked him? You could see that he had tears. I didn't really see his tears, but yeah, I do agree that he was kind of afraid, but not because of dying. He was more afraid of leaving the people he loves, not being able to be with them anymore. I don't think Abraham was the type of character to be afraid of dying. Now let's move on to the Walking Dead comic book / TV show questions. The first one comes from Steven Moraga, and he asks, do you think they should change the Spike scene? And he has whisper border in brackets. So he's talking about the border with the heads and the spikes scene from the comics. I don't think they should change it. That was an iconic scene from the comics, and much like the iconic scenes we've seen so far, the Lucille death being one of them, they definitely will not be changing these iconic scenes. So they're gonna stick with it. They might remix it in some ways, but they're gonna keep it for sure. Now let's move on to the comic book questions. The first one comes from Mr. Tokyo777, and he asks, who would win in an all-out war scenario, the Saviors or the Whisperers? Well, first, it's not really going to be an all-out war scenario because it's going to be two communities only. But in a head-to-head battle between the Whisperers and the Saviors, I would probably say, in the comics at least, at this point, the Whisperers for sure. It's actually pretty interesting because when the Saviors were first introduced, they had the numbers, and because of that, they were the winning side. And there had to be a lot more effort from the Survivors' side in terms of the numbers to beat them. And now we see the Whisperers have that numbers. And this number isn't really the Whisperers themselves, it's the Walkers as well. So it's kind of interesting, that parallelism that exists. But yeah, to answer the question, the Whisperers. Now let's move on to just general Walking Dead questions. The first one comes from David Farley, and he asks, do you collect merchandise from The Walking Dead, or are you not into that stuff? Yeah, I don't collect them. I'm not into them. I just collect the comic book issues, and I've recently started to collect some of the volumes as well. And I also have the compendiums, but in terms of the merchandise, yeah, I don't collect those. The last question comes from Final Mystery T, and he asks, should Clementine from Telltale Games of The Walking Dead make an appearance in the TV series Fear the Walking Dead? To be honest, I don't play the Telltale games, and so I can't really answer that. I know who Clementine is based on just seeing her around when people talk about the game and stuff, but I've never actually played the game, so I don't really know. But in terms of an external opinion for someone who hasn't played the games and who doesn't know much about the character, I think Fear the Walking Dead would be a great medium to introduce that character to me, and I think it'll be interesting to see that character and to be introduced to her, but I think it'll be cool if they do something like that. That's it for this Q&A video. Thanks for participating. If you want to participate in my next Q&A video, just leave your questions in the comment section below. Make sure to put Q&A on the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'll be back for another video.